Good evening, everyone. We are here for another Empire's Comics Vault interview. And tonight is a very special one because most of you will know who we're talking about. Those of you who don't, you are going to be surprised at just how much of your childhood this man influenced and shaped and gave you so many amazing memories. So I would like to welcome Sierra Dall to the show. And we're going to be talking today about Colin Cantwell.
Thank you so much, Ben.
No,
Yes.
thank you. I'm really glad that we get the opportunity to do this. You two were in the shop for people a couple years ago, doing some signings, getting the prints into people's hands. When you all come in the shop, there is a signed print of Colin's right above the door
Oh,
that
very
you
good.
take note of. It's been there ever since you guys were here, and yeah, no, it's just I'm really glad to get to talk to you because when you guys came through, I unfortunately was out of town that weekend, so I did not get to meet either one of you, and I didn't get to hear the stories or get the behind the scenes. So for all of those who didn't make it, and for myself, we're here to learn about Colin, his work, his life, and the impact he has had afterwards because his legacy continues.
Well, Colin certainly had a life. He worked on multiple films, not just Star Wars. He started out wanting to be an architect. He went to Taliesin without any invitation, and Frank Lloyd Wright saw him, said, "Go get your tuition." And Colin said, "Isn't there a waiting list?" And Frank Lloyd Wright said, "No, not for you." So Colin went home to get his tuition, and by the time he came back, Frank Lloyd Wright had died. So then he went on to other adventures. He worked for NASA for a number of years. He worked on Mars rover or Mars Mariner, a rendition of the Mars map. He did an actual topography type map for Mars with NASA. He worked on 2001 Space Odyssey, sat behind Walter Cronkite on the first moon landing, telling Walter what to say. He had a comm line between the astronauts and NASA, and he was listening to the conversations. The other two stations had them landed because they followed the flight manual, but Colin was listening to the words and didn't think they had actually landed. So he was telling Walter that, and station manager yelling, "You'll never work again the rest of your life." And Colin stuck to his guns, and sure enough, he was right. They had to go past the landing spot and land a little bit later than they had planned. He worked on War Games, Close Encounters of a Third Kind. Buck Rogers created a stop action motion picture camera for Buck Rogers, multi-colored monitor for Hewlett Packard, first Imax Theater in San Diego. He was a very prolific creator.
Yeah, and he was all over the place. Like I said earlier, it's the all of these things they mentioned from Space Odyssey. Buck Rogers was one of my absolute favorites as a kid. These are all things that people don't always know who's behind the scenes bringing to life this kind of stuff. So it's amazing that he was able to get involved on all of these.
Yes, he got invited to a lot of projects. He was, a problem solver. And one of the things he told me is that he liked to create things that people couldn't unthink. And that's what he did. When he wanted a job, he would go in, he would create some kind of a solution to their problem, present it to them, and they couldn't get it out of their minds and ended up hiring him in some cases.
So that's amazing. So he wanted to be an architect, decided not to be. And how did he end up getting these jobs? How did he end up like doing this?
Well, he wanted to be an architect, but he particularly wanted to study with Frank Lloyd Wright. And then when that fell apart, he decided there wasn't anybody else he really thought was something he was interested enough to become. So a lot of it was in college. He did a lot of videos that sell, movies. He created movies. He had a lot of relationships. But again, when he wanted something like with NASA, he would volunteer with them so that he would go in and do a lot of their public relations videos for nothing. And they offered, he offered his services for free. And that's how he ended up in NASA. But he also was, when he wanted something, he learned so much about it that when he went in to get the job, he was already an expert in that area. But
Okay.
with Lucas, his friend, he had already worked on 2001 Space Odyssey. And with Lucas, his friend Hal Barwood was working on American and worked with Lucas. And Colin had created these kit bash ships, which some of you may have heard about the word kit bashing. Well, that was where it started, was with Colin. And he took all these different ships apart, all these different toys, cars, planes, trains. And we had about what do I say, a square, about 4x4, maybe 3.5 by 3.5 square, four-sided piece of equipment on a turnstile. So you could turn it around about maybe 4 or 5 feet high. And it had what he called Nerney drawers. And in each of these little drawers were one type of piece of a ship of some kind. And that's how he built these kit bash ships. So he showed them to George Lucas, and George, decided to hire him. And we have a video here that we can show about Colin talking about these ships that he created.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll put that on in just a second. That's interesting. He literally was just taking the random pieces that he had and coming up with these amazing designs.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is the original kit bashing, because I know a lot of people do that now with other toys and things.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe, maybe some kids at some point in time had done that before, but he kind of made it a standard at his time. And the ships that he created were so intricate that Lucas just spent a lot of time looking at them, very in great detail, before he finally decided to hire Colin. And the ships of the movie, the original ships that Colin built, of the X-Wing, Death Star, TIE Fighter, all that are kit bashed, all of them. And they all have all these strange parts, which I have other videos that talk about exactly the materials he used to make some of these ships.
Okay, and it's interesting too, and we'll go over after we look at the kit basher video. I want to look at some of the designs he did, and it's interesting because some of them are immediately, yep, that's it, and then other ones you see they were intended for one thing, and then they kind of got repurposed into another.
They did, and they actually have a ship named after him, the Andor television. Well, Colin and I were at ILM a few years ago, and the guys there were just saying, hey, we should take some of Colin's earlier designs and do something with it. So then a couple of years later, they end up with the Andor ship that was on television, and it's called the Arrestor Cruiser Cantwell-Class. So they named it after Colin, which is really a wonderful tribute to Colin.
Yes, and we have a picture of that we'll show in a little bit, but let's look at some of this early kit bashing that a lot of you might even be doing right now, and see what Colin has to say about it.
Machine, you called it the ground superiority machine. Tell us a little bit about what this is.
Yes, the ground superiority machine, in my fantasy vision here. I got all these parts, kept putting them together. They kept speaking to me, and different parts of it made other parts. And it, as you can see, can travel on treads, has rotors so that it can gain altitude off the ground, and it has combinations of all sorts of plastic model parts, from probably 50, maybe even more models.
So this is your second masterpiece here. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, this one is made completely from scratch. All of the components of this were in model drawers, some 200 model drawers, and they were then assembled and glued, and in all of its complexity, it was created to tell the story. For instance, right here is the wealthy philanthropist who donated his fortune to the building of this craft, which is dedicated to achieving world peace by 1860.
Okay, so that's his kit bash shifts, two of them.
Yes, that is extremely intense with the sheer amount of stuff that goes onto that. But what I found the most interesting watching that was that he wasn't just throwing random pieces together. He had built up an entire story
He
around
did,
it. And
yes.
even though he
Yes.
just gave us the surface of it, I'm sure as he was building it, the entire thing had fleshed itself out in his mind.
Well, that's the way he approached the ships for Star Wars. He felt that each of those ships was an actor. And so he wanted to have each of the ships that he created have their own character and a role in the movie, as if they were acting in the movie. And that's how he designed them.
That's fantastic, and they did. I mean, you think of the Millennium Falcon, as a character, and we'll see his original Millennium Falcon, which sort of got kind of repurposed into other things as they went along. But can we see some of those pictures again, and see some of the designs that he did? Because the Death Star, obviously, the X-wing. And here we go. We got some of these. So here, what do we have here?
Well, he created almost everything that flew in that first movie, A New Hope. So he's got the X-wing, and that's the original concept art behind him. He created these on pencil drawings on dark paper, and we had, I knew him for 24 years. We were together 24 years. And it was 16 years into when we knew him that I even knew he had these in the basement. We had to move, and he never wanted to talk about Star Wars particularly. And all of a sudden, I discovered all this original concept art in our basement, and we had to move and sell practically everything we had because we didn't really know where we were going. The landlord was renovating the place and pretty much kicked us out. So we found all these original concept art. And so the one you can see, there's the cruiser up in the upper left, and you have the Death Star modeled in the middle. After he created the concept art, then he started working on the models. So, and these are all up for sale right now to the signed prints that we have of all these different objects. And that's Colin.
Yep.
So down on the bottom right again is the original concept art of the X-wing.
And we'll pull up the website here for you to take a peek at, so you guys can see what he actually got. Oh, wait, before we do, here, obviously, we've got the clear TIE fighter right in the center. The one at the top right was the original Millennium Falcon.
Yes, all of these have stories. All of these ships have stories behind them. But yes, that is right. That was the original Millennium Falcon. And they had to tear it apart because another movie actually had a very similar design. So they saved the cockpit on the front of it and put it on the side of the current Millennium Falcon.
Oh, I don't know how that didn't even occur to me just by looking at it. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, that, like I said, every one of these has their own story.
That is really cool. And the one here on the left is the one that's the Cantwell.
Yes, that's the one that's now called the Arrestor Cruiser Cantwell-Class, and that was in the Andor movie. And the one on the right, I'm not exactly sure what it turned out to be, a Sith type ship, as I understand it. But yes, it was one of the other concept drawings.
Very nice. Well, and again, we'll pull up the website here in just a second for you guys to take a peek, because these are not the only prints. There are also only a limited supply left.
Yes, exactly.
They're all
I have
signed.
some, a number of prints that Colin has signed before he passed away. And what we have is what we have. And some of them were down to very, very few. And some of them we have, quite a few of. So the price changes according to the volume that we have left.
Yes, that's it. And as we're pulling the website up now, but on the bottom you can see the website. And what you also want to do is when you go to pick out your print, just use the promo code after you selected it, Empire, to take 15% off of your order. So just
Yes, and that's good through Christmas then, yeah.
through Christmas. And this is great for you guys as fans. It's great for any Star Wars fan out there, because I mean, who isn't a Star Wars fan? My cousin has never watched one of the movies, and I think she's only done it just to be contrary at this point, because everyone else in America has seen these things.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. So that's great. I love that you have kept it going, that you've continued to get these things out there. I do find it amazing that he just left the concept stuff sitting it's just sitting in the store.
He didn't want to talk about Star Wars. He really didn't. And I wasn't with Colin to hear about Star Wars. I was with him because he was this brilliant, wonderful person. So, yes. Well, one other exciting thing that's happening right now, there's an organization, a CSJ Foundation, that is taking on Colin's work, and they're turning it into museum exhibits, and they want to encourage young people to get involved in STEAM programs, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So that's one of the things that they're doing. And they actually invited me to the COSI Museum in Columbus, Ohio. And that's one thing I'd like to show you at the end. They made some amazing robotics for the museum and a huge corner of Colin's work. So one of the things I'm donating is some of the profits of any of the sales from these prints we're going to donate to that cause, because they want to continue Colin's legacy.
Yeah, and they continue to, like you said, support his legacy and his work, which is just wonderful. I apologize, we're having a little trouble getting the website to display here, but you guys can read. It's right at the bottom. It's ColinCantwell.com.
ColinCantwell.com/shop is where you can buy the prints. But we have a couple of videos to show too.
Yeah.
One of them is a great.
I was going to say, before we do, when you go to the website, it's really interesting. Take a moment, just don't go to the shop. Read the about page, look at it, because there's some really fascinating information about him, his work, and his life.
Yes. Yes.
But anyways, I'm sorry. Brad did. Okay, that's really great.
Brad Cook did a beautiful job of redoing Colin's website so it looks much more professional, and he put up a lot of information about his legacy, which he deserves. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, then, and what video did you want to show next? You were about to talk about.
Well, there's one really fun one. We went to the, what is it? Can't think of the name of it. It's a museum in Denver, and it had a almost full-size replica of the X-Wing. So let's show that one. It's the almost full-size replica.
First comic book conventions. He then helped us set up at a Star Wars event at the Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum in Denver, Colorado. Once there, Colin made an effort to have meaningful conversations with some of the other folks at the show. He also introduced himself to R2-D2. The main attraction at the show, however, was a 2/3 life-size version of the X-Wing ship that Colin designed for the first Star Wars movie. They did an extraordinary job of recreating the details of every aspect of this ship. The wings, the cockpit, even the thrusters in the back seemed real. You almost felt as if you could take off flying. In fact, Colin tried. Since he was the creator of the ship, it was only right that he should sign his work, and he was very honored that they asked him to do that.
Oh, that's it. Sorry, So where is that ship now?
It's still at the museum, as far as I know. Here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where was that at again?
I can't think of the name of it again. What was the name of that?
That's all right. It's in the video. We can go. We can go back and look at it. That would just be interesting to be able to see something like that in person.
Yeah, no, he climbed into it and tried to fly it, but it didn't get very far. So,
Didn't get very far. No, then had to come
well,
back
you
down.
have to understand what a character Colin was. He was, a genius, but he was also a nerd and had a great sense of humor. So, yes,
That is wonderful. And obviously he wasn't just an artist. He his vision for these things, like you said, as a creator and a writer, almost he has a story behind them all. And he actually wrote a couple books, correct?
he did.
Are those
Four Fires 1 and Four
available?
Fires 2.
And
They're space novels, basically. You know, science fiction.
okay, and those are still available for people to hunt down.
They are. If you go to the website, colincantwell.com, you can find links to them there too. Yes.
Then you don't have to do any hunting, everybody. You just have to go to the website, which you should be
Yeah.
going to anyways. Yeah, no, that is absolutely wonderful. And I'm glad that he really got out there, because when you guys came to the shop, I heard from the people who showed up, and they had just talked about how approachable he is, how personable he is, how he took the time to talk to each one of them and not just put a signature on and move on.
Right. And he had no idea until we started going to Comic Cons and comic book stores the impact he had on people's lives. Many people came up to him and told him that they got into their careers in aeronautics or into graphic design or something like that because they were inspired by Colin's work. And
That
one man was in a wheelchair, and he came up to Colin in tears, and he said, "You saved my life, because if it weren't for your designs, I probably wouldn't want to live." And he was making the Lego models out of Colin's work. And he
uh,
was just so excited to see Colin. And that was so extraordinarily touching that
that
he had that impact. But Colin, finally, he realized that people really respected his work, and it made a difference in people's lives. And he loved meeting people. He really loved meeting people.
That's great.
So,
And these things they leave such an impression. You see that kind of stuff, and it's not just the excitement that I feel now as an adult, but it's the thing that takes me back to the 6-year-old Ben, who is just enamored with Star Wars and Space Odyssey and Buck Rogers. And it's just, yeah, it's extremely important to all of us as fans.
yes, I know it did. And, for me too, I've always been a sci-fi fan. So it was exciting to hear that aspect of Colin's life and all the rest of his creations. Actually, we talked about a lot of them.
That's awesome. Now, do you still have the original designs?
No, the original ones have been sold at auction a long
Okay.
time ago. Yeah.
And so you said they were done with pencil.
Pencil on dark paper, yes.
In dark paper. So they, once you guys found them, you then got them colored.
No, they were a colored pencil on
Wow.
colored paper.
That's
Yeah, that's
incredible.
what they were. Yeah, and then we made prints of them. We saved did scans of them and made prints of them, high res prints.
God,
So
and you
that's
did
what
all
we're saying.
that color with pencil.
Yeah. You have to really look at it, but you can see it on some of them, like the X-wing. You can see the grain on the pencil on the wings and such.
I might have to go take a peek at the one I have above the door and see what I can see.
Yeah, it's very detailed. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is very, very detailed. So you all are gonna, of course, want to go visit this. Share this tip with another Star Wars fan, another sci-fi fan in general is gonna find something from this. And of course, go to colincantwellart.com/shop/ type in the code EMPIRE to get 15% off. Some of those proceeds go to the foundation, which we're going to show a video about so people know what they're supporting.
Yes, it's exciting. It really is. The TSJ Foundation has done a beautiful job with Colin's work.
Well, great. Well, then let's show the video. Let's get you guys extra motivated to go on over, purchase some of that because who doesn't want to help kids?
Yes. Well, legacy. Eric Jacobs of the TSJ Foundation contacted me and told me that he wanted to create traveling museum exhibits featuring Colin's work. The purpose is to encourage youth to become interested in STEAM. That's science and technology, engineering, art, and math. Then he invited me to see what they were doing at a Star Wars celebration at the COSI Museum in Columbus, Ohio. The video seems to be stuck there.
You can just pull it down real quick and try one more time.
Yeah.
So when did you start working with them?
Oh, Colin?
No, with this organization.
Oh, about several months now.
Oh, so this
Maybe I guess maybe the end of last year. Yeah.
Okay, this is relatively new. Yeah, we're going to give the video.
It is relatively new. Yes.
And and if we have a problem for some reason, we'll put the link to them in the video, and of course we'll have links to it in the email and on our social media. But here we go. Let's see how it goes.
Oh, Colin. For Colin's legacy. Eric Jacobs of the TSJ Foundation contacted me and told me that he wanted to create traveling museum exhibits featuring Colin's work. The purpose is to encourage youth to become interested in STEAM. That's science and technology, engineering.
But so we'll include. Yeah, we'll include the links for all of you guys to this thing so you can look into it. But yeah, please tell us about what they did.
It's seriously worth looking at if you have that up on your website, because they have some extraordinary robotics that they've put together at this museum. And they invited me over there earlier this year. And they did a really nice job. They had a whole corner of Colin's work. And actually, they had one of them was a hologram of the TIE fighter. So, among other things. But they had Colin's pictures rotating on a slide type thing, and a whole corner of posters of all of his different kinds of work with NASA and with the Imax Theater and all that, talking about everything he's done. But they want to expand that too into a traveling museum traveling exhibit that goes to various museums across the country. So that's one of the things that they're working on right now, and that's why I want to support them. They want to do classes and use Colin's work to take it apart, kind of, and use different kinds of work to explain one part of STEAM, like science, technology, art, engineering, because Colin studied engineering and a lot of his work was based on what his knowledge was of engineering and science and math, and all of it fit into his work.
That's great. Yeah, we'll make sure to share it with you guys so you can watch it afterwards. But what I did want to hear about, because we had to start the video and you had teased me with there being a story about your Death Star medallion.
Yes, I don't think I have that video up there. Do we?
Oh no,
we have the X-Wing and the Millennium Falcon. Those are the two.
Okay. Then that'll just be a surprise. You're gonna have to track her down and try it out. So please, everybody, head on over to the shop, support a great cause, get some prints that will not be available for much longer. Because once these are gone, it's done. And use that code so that you can get a little savings during the holidays. I know you've got a lot of people to shop for, including yourself. But Sierra, I really appreciate you joining us. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you've continued the legacy. I love the fact that you have turned the legacy into something for the future generation. It's just thank you for all of that.
Well, he was such an extraordinary man. I would hate to have his work just suddenly disappear and people not to know about him. And I'm so happy to see it being used for such an important purpose as getting kids interested in STEAM. And thanks, Ben, so much for having me.
No, this was really great. So again, everybody, head on over to the shop. I'll talk to you about this in this shop. And you all enjoy your Sunday night. And Sierra, you have a great one.
All right. You too now.